The wind howled across the frozen land. Snowflakes spun in the air like tiny white sparks, covering everything in a thick blanket of ice. Liam pulled his coat tighter around his body and tried to see through the storm. His boots sank into the snow with every heavy step. The planet was colder than anything he had ever known, and the storm made it nearly impossible to move forward. He had been sent with a small team to explore this distant world. It was a place of ice mountains, frozen rivers, and endless white valleys. The team's camp was set up near the edge of a glacier, but Liam had wandered too far while studying strange glowing crystals that grew out of the snow. Now the storm had come fast, and he was cut off from his friends. His radio cracked with static. "Liam, can you hear us?" a faint voice said, but the storm swallowed the words. He tapped the device, but the signal was lost. The wind pushed against him so hard that he had to lean forward to keep from falling. His face burned from the cold. He knew he could not last long out here alone. He needed shelter, any shelter, before the storm froze him in place. Through the curtain of snow, he saw a dark shadow in the side of a cliff. His heart lifted. It looked like the mouth of a cave. He stumbled toward it, pushing himself through the drifts until he finally reached the opening. Inside, the air was still. The sound of the storm faded, replaced by silence. Liam pulled back his hood and let out a long breath. The cave was enormous, with walls of clear blue ice. Light from the crystals outside reflected through the ice, making the walls glow softly. It felt like stepping into another world, quiet, shining, and almost magical. As his eyes adjusted, he saw that the cave stretched deeper into the mountain. The walls sparkled, as if stars were trapped inside the ice. He stepped forward carefully, his boots crunching on the frozen floor. The deeper he went, the warmer it became. That surprised him. He pressed his gloved hand to the wall and felt a faint heat under the surface. Somehow, the cave held its own hidden warmth. Then, he froze. He was not alone. From the shadows at the far side of the cave, someone was watching him. A figure stepped into the light, a young woman with dark hair braided neatly down her back. Her clothes were made of soft fur stitched with beads of crystal. Her skin glowed faintly in the reflection of the ice, and her eyes were bright and sharp, like pieces of clear glass. Liam's breath caught in his throat. He had not expected to find anyone living on this frozen planet. The records from his ship said nothing about people here. Yet she stood before him, calm and steady, as if she had been waiting. They stared at each other in silence. Liam raised a hand slowly, trying to show he meant no harm. The woman tilted her head, studying him. She did not speak, but her eyes followed every move he made. Finally, she stepped closer. Her steps were light and careful, leaving almost no mark on the frozen floor. She looked at his heavy clothes, his strange gear, and then back into his eyes. Liam felt both nervous and curious at the same time. "Hello," he said softly, though he knew she might not understand. His voice echoed faintly through the cave. The woman did not answer with words. Instead, she touched the icy wall with her palm, then placed her other hand over her heart. She looked at him as if asking a question without speaking. Liam tried to understand. Slowly, he repeated her gesture, hand on the ice, then hand over his heart. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, a small smile touched her lips. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It felt lighter, almost gentle. Liam realized that the cave had given him more than shelter from the storm. It had given him a meeting he could never have imagined, a meeting that might change everything. The storm outside raged on, but inside the ice cave, Liam felt a strange calm. The young woman stood across from him, her eyes steady and thoughtful. He had never expected to meet someone here, in a place his maps had called empty. Yet here she was, as real as the shimmering walls around them. Liam wanted to speak more, to ask her name, but he knew words would not help. She probably did not understand his language. Still, silence did not feel empty between them, it was filled with quiet meaning. The woman moved first. She walked deeper into the cave and motioned for him to follow. Her movements were graceful, almost like a dancer. Liam hesitated for a moment, then stepped after her, his boots echoing softly. As they walked, the crystals in the walls glowed brighter, casting blue and white light across the cavern. Liam noticed small carvings in the ice, symbols cut carefully, like art or writing. He paused to look at them, tracing one with his glove. The woman turned and watched him. For a moment, her expression grew softer, as if she was pleased that he noticed. She led him to a part of the cave where the floor dipped into a small hollow. There, steam rose from a pool of water, its surface glowing faintly from the crystals below. The warmth surprised Liam. He crouched near the edge, feeling the heat brush against his face. The woman knelt beside him and touched the water lightly. Then she gestured toward him, urging him to do the same. He removed his glove carefully and dipped his hand into the pool. The water was warm, almost comforting, like a hidden fire in the frozen world. Liam looked at her with wonder. "This is amazing," he whispered, though he knew she might not understand. She only smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the pool. For the first time, Liam noticed the small details about her. The beads in her clothing shimmered with light, as if made from the same crystals in the cave. Her hands were strong, shaped by a life in this cold land, but her movements were gentle. She seemed to belong to the cave, as if she was part of its secret heart. They stayed near the pool for a while. Liam pulled a small packet of dried food from his bag and offered it to her. She tilted her head, curious, before taking a piece. She tasted it slowly, then gave a little laugh, a soft, musical sound that echoed through the cave. Liam laughed too, the sound breaking the silence between them. Though they spoke no common words, they began to share small things. Liam drew shapes in the frost on the floor, stars, planets, and his ship. She watched carefully, then added her own marks beside his, drawing patterns that looked like waves or winds. They pointed at each other's drawings, smiling, trying to guess meanings. At one point, Liam touched his chest and said slowly, "Liam." The woman watched him, then touched her own chest. "Myra," she said softly. Her voice was quiet but clear, like the sound of water dripping into the pool. Liam repeated the name. "Myra." The sound felt warm in his mouth. She nodded, her eyes lighting up. From then on, her name stayed in his mind. Myra. A name as simple and beautiful as the glowing cave. Time passed without either of them noticing. Outside, the storm still roared, but in the cave, the two of them built a bond without needing words. It was in the way Myra showed him how to sit close to the warm walls, how to drink from the glowing pool safely, how to listen to the deep hum inside the ice. And it was in the way Liam listened, laughed, and shared small pieces of his world. At last, Myra stood and gestured for him to follow once more. She led him to a narrow passage, where the ice formed a high arch like the ceiling of a cathedral. Above them, the crystals shone so brightly that it felt like walking under a sky of stars. Liam looked up in awe. He forgot about the cold, the storm, even his lost team. For that moment, all that mattered was the silent bond growing between him and Myra. It was fragile, like thin ice, but it was real. As they stood under the glowing arch, Liam realized something: the cave was no longer just a shelter. It was a bridge between two worlds, and Myra was the key. For a long time, Liam forgot the storm outside. With Myra beside him, the cave no longer felt lonely. She showed him the hidden paths, the glowing pools, and the carvings that told quiet stories. Every step they took together made the strange cave feel almost like home. But the outside world had not forgotten him. It was Myra who noticed first. She paused near the entrance of the cave and tilted her head, listening. Liam followed her gaze. Through the thick curtain of snow, faint lights moved in the distance. Shapes appeared, dark figures with lamps strapped to their shoulders. Liam's heart jumped. His team had found him. He hurried forward, waving his arms. "Over here," he shouted. The lights grew brighter as the searchers rushed toward him. Relief washed over him. He had been lost in the storm, and now he would be safe. But when his team finally reached the cave entrance, their relief turned to suspicion. "Liam, are you all right?" one of them asked, pulling back his frost-covered hood. But then his eyes fell on Myra. He froze. "What is that?" The others gathered quickly, staring at her with sharp eyes. To them, she was not Myra. She was an unknown figure in a dangerous land. Their hands gripped their gear tighter. Liam stepped between them. "She's not a threat," he said firmly. "She saved me. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be standing here." Myra stood quietly behind him, her face calm but her eyes watchful. She did not move closer, as if she could sense their unease. One of the team members shook his head. "We don't know who she is, or what she wants. Liam, you can't trust her. We came here to study the land, not to mix with strangers. We don't even know if she's human." Liam felt frustration rise in his chest. "Look at her," he argued. "She's like us. She has a name, Myra. She showed me the cave, the warm pools, everything. She helped me survive." But the others did not soften. Their eyes stayed hard, full of doubt. To them, the icy world was already full of risk: storms, avalanches, freezing winds. The idea of a stranger living in the middle of it only added more danger. Myra lowered her eyes. She seemed to understand without hearing their words. Slowly, she stepped back into the shadows of the cave. Liam turned to her quickly. "No, wait." He reached out a hand, but Myra stopped. She touched the icy wall gently, then placed her hand over her heart, the same gesture from when they first met. Her eyes met his, soft but distant, and then she walked deeper into the cave until the blue glow swallowed her figure. The team leader placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. "Come back with us. The storm's not over, and we need to return to camp. You're lucky to be alive." But Liam barely heard the words. His chest felt heavy, as if the walls of the cave had suddenly grown colder. Myra's absence left an emptiness inside him. As they guided him back toward camp, Liam looked over his shoulder. The glowing crystals flickered faintly in the distance, like stars fading behind clouds. He wondered if Myra was watching him leave, hidden in the deep tunnels. Back at camp, the warmth of fire and the comfort of his team should have brought him peace. Yet Liam could not rest. His thoughts returned again and again to Myra, her quiet smile, her laughter when she tasted his food, the way her name sounded in the cave. His team spoke of the dangers of trusting strangers. They warned him not to go back to the cave. They said it was safer to stay away. But Liam's heart was restless. He could not forget the bond he had felt, a bond that no warning could erase. He lay awake long into the night, staring at the frozen ceiling of the tent. The storm outside had calmed, but a different storm had started inside him, a storm of doubt, torn between the safety of his world and the mystery of Myra's. And deep inside, he knew one truth: he could not stay away forever. The days at camp passed slowly for Liam. His team worked on collecting samples, measuring ice thickness, and recording data about the planet. But Liam's mind was far away. Each night, he thought of Myra and the glowing cave. The memory of her name, her gestures, and her quiet smile burned brighter than the campfires around him. At last, he could not ignore it anymore. One morning, while the others were busy with equipment, Liam slipped away. He followed the familiar path back toward the cliffs, his boots crunching in the snow. The air was calmer now, and the sky glowed pale with the light of two small moons. When he reached the cave, his heart raced. He stepped inside and called softly, "Myra." His voice echoed through the icy halls. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from the shadows, she appeared. Her eyes widened with surprise, then softened with recognition. She stepped closer, her hand resting over her heart as she had done before. Liam smiled and repeated the gesture. The air between them warmed again, as if the cave itself welcomed their reunion. But their moment of peace did not last. A deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet. Ice cracked loudly above them, and shards fell from the ceiling. Myra grabbed Liam's arm and pulled him back just as a large chunk of ice crashed to the floor where he had been standing. The cave groaned like a living creature in pain. Without words, Myra pointed to a narrow tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. Liam nodded, and they ran together. The ground trembled, the walls shivered, and more pieces of ice rained down. They reached a wide chamber, but before they could find another exit, the passage behind them collapsed. A wall of ice and rock sealed the way out. Liam coughed through the cloud of frost. They were trapped. For a moment, fear pressed heavily on him. But when he looked at Myra, he saw no panic in her eyes. She placed a hand on the icy wall, listening to the deep hum inside it. Then she turned to him and pointed upward, toward a faint glow at the top of the chamber. There was another way out. Together, they searched for a path. Myra showed him where the ice was thinner, where cracks created small ledges. With careful steps, they began to climb. Liam was not used to moving so lightly, but Myra guided him, steady and calm. When his foot slipped, she reached for his hand. When the path grew too narrow, he boosted her up first. The climb was long and tiring. Their breaths came in clouds of mist. But in those moments, they leaned on each other completely, one steadying the other, one lifting when the other faltered. At last, they reached a shelf near the glowing crack. From there, Myra found a small tunnel leading upward. It was tight and steep, but they squeezed through side by side. Their hands brushed often, and every time, Liam felt a spark of courage. Finally, they emerged into another chamber. This one was smaller but filled with soft light from hundreds of crystals. The air was warm, almost like spring. Liam fell back against the wall, exhausted, but laughter bubbled out of his chest. Myra laughed too, her clear voice echoing around them. They had escaped the collapse together. For a long moment, they simply sat side by side, breathing hard, listening to the quiet hum of the crystals. Liam looked at her and realized something new. Before, he had admired Myra's mystery, her calm presence, her connection to the cave. But now, After facing danger together, his feelings grew deeper. He trusted her not just with his safety, but with his heart. Myra seemed to feel the same. She met his gaze, her smile gentle but strong. She touched her chest lightly, then pointed at him. Liam understood. They were no longer strangers. The cave had tested them, and together they had endured. The storm outside might still rage, and their two worlds might still stand apart, but in that glowing chamber, Liam and Myra shared something unshakable. For the first time, Liam did not feel like a visitor in the ice. He felt like he belonged because he was not alone. The hidden chamber became their safe place after the collapse. Its walls glowed softly, and the air carried warmth that felt almost alive. Liam and Myra sat together on the smooth ice floor, their breath steadying after the long climb. For the first time in days, Liam felt at peace. Hours passed, though time seemed to blur inside the cave. They shared food from Liam's pack, and Myra brought him clear water from a crack in the ice that dripped like a small spring. Without words, they built a rhythm, passing food, pointing at shapes in the glowing walls, sharing small laughs when one of them guessed wrong at the other's gestures. Liam found himself watching Myra more than the crystals. The light danced across her face, highlighting the curve of her smile and the brightness in her eyes. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, strong yet gentle, quiet yet full of unspoken meaning. He realized that his thoughts of her had grown beyond curiosity. When he first met her, he had seen her as a mystery. Now, he saw her as something more. Myra noticed his gaze. She tilted her head slightly, studying him in return. Then she pointed at the symbols carved into the wall behind them. With careful hands, she traced one of the shapes, a circle surrounded by lines like rays. She tapped it and then touched her chest. Liam leaned closer. "That means, you?" he asked softly. She nodded, her eyes shining. Then she pointed at another carving, a small figure with arms outstretched, and looked at him. He placed his hand over his chest. "Liam." Her smile deepened. Slowly, she drew the two symbols together in the frost, circling them with her finger. She did not speak, but the meaning was clear. Liam felt his heart stir. He understood she was showing that their lives, their paths, were beginning to touch. The thought filled him with warmth even stronger than the cave's glow. For a while, they sat in silence, the air thick with quiet understanding. Liam wanted to tell her everything in his heart, that he admired her courage, that he felt safe beside her, that he could not imagine walking away from this bond. But he struggled with words. Instead, he did what she had taught him, he let his actions speak. He placed his hand on the wall, then over his heart, and finally reached his hand gently toward her. Myra's eyes widened just slightly, then softened. She placed her hand in his. It was a simple touch, but it carried the weight of all they could not say. The cave seemed to hum louder, as if it too recognized the moment. The crystals sparkled more brightly, casting soft colors across the ice. Liam and Myra sat together, hand in hand, two souls from different worlds connected by something both fragile and strong. As time passed, Liam began to think of the future. His team would soon search for him again. They would call him back to camp, back to his duties, back to the mission. But how could he leave Myra? The thought of stepping away from her felt unbearable. He turned to her, his voice low. "I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." Myra did not understand the words, but she understood the feeling. She touched his cheek lightly, her eyes steady and filled with quiet strength. It was her way of telling him not to fear. That touch sealed his realization. Liam knew it now, without doubt. What he felt for Myra was not simple friendship or gratitude. It was something deeper, something that reached into his heart and anchored itself there. It was love. And though the world outside the cave might not understand, though his team might warn him and Myra's people might turn away, Liam was certain of one thing: he could not deny what had grown between them. In the heart of the frozen cave, with glowing crystals above and warmth surrounding them, Liam and Myra discovered not just survival, but the beginning of something greater. Liam and Myra stayed in the glowing chamber as long as they could. The warmth, the quiet, and the bond they shared made it feel like a safe world of its own. But outside, life continued, and reality soon came knocking. One morning, faint voices echoed through the tunnels. Liam's heart tightened. It was his team. They were searching for him again. The sound grew louder, bouncing across the walls until it reached their chamber. Myra stiffened. She looked at Liam, her eyes full of worry. She already knew what it meant. Moments later, the beam of a lamp cut through the cave. Several figures appeared, bundled in thick coats, their boots crunching loudly on the ice. Their leader's face brightened with relief when he saw Liam. "There you are. We've been searching for days," the man said. But his smile faded when he noticed Myra standing beside him. The others whispered uneasily, their eyes narrowing. "You're coming back with us," another team member said firmly. "It's too dangerous to stay here, especially with her." Liam stepped forward, shaking his head. "You don't understand. Myra saved me. She's not dangerous. She belongs here, and he paused, his heart pounding. "I can't just leave her." The words startled even him. He had spoken them without planning, but they carried the truth he could no longer hide. The team leader frowned. "Liam, think carefully. You have a duty to us, to the mission. She is not part of that mission. We don't know her people, we don't know what they want. If you stay tied to her, you put yourself and maybe all of us at risk." Liam's chest ached. Duty had always been his guiding light. But now, with Myra at his side, his heart pulled in a different direction. Myra, sensing the conflict, touched his hand lightly. She looked at him with steady eyes, then shook her head gently, as if telling him not to choose her if it meant harm. She was ready to let go, even if it hurt. That only made Liam's choice harder. The team urged him toward the exit, but Liam didn't move. He looked at Myra, then at the people he had traveled across the stars with. His voice came out firm. "I can't abandon her. She's more than a stranger. She's part of my life now." The team exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered about rules and safety. Others said nothing, their faces unreadable. One finally spoke. "If you choose her, Liam, then you can't go back with us. You'll be cut off. Are you ready for that?" Silence hung heavy in the glowing cave. The hum of the crystals seemed to echo Liam's heartbeat. He turned fully toward Myra. She stood tall, though her eyes shimmered with unspoken fear. Slowly, Liam placed his hand over his chest, then reached for hers. "Myra," he whispered. Her lips curved into a small smile. She understood. When Liam faced his team again, his voice was steady. "I've made my choice. I stay with her." The leader's face hardened, but he nodded slowly. "So be it. We'll report your decision to command." With that, he turned and motioned for the others to leave. One by one, the team members disappeared into the tunnels, their lights fading like falling stars. When the last echo of their footsteps died, silence filled the cave again. Liam let out a long breath. The weight of his choice pressed heavily on him, but at the same time, a strange peace settled in his chest. He had chosen the harder path, but it was the path his heart demanded. Myra stepped closer, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. Her eyes shone with both gratitude and sadness. She knew what he had given up. But she also knew what they had gained, trust that could not be broken. Together, they stood under the glow of the crystals. Outside, storms and doubts still waited. But here, in the heart of the ice, they had passed the final test. And they were ready for whatever came next. The cave was quiet now, save for the gentle hum of the glowing crystals. Liam and Myra stood side by side, hands intertwined, their eyes reflecting the soft light around them. They had faced storms, collapsed tunnels, and doubt, and yet here they were together. Outside, the frozen landscape stretched endlessly. Snow-covered mountains and valleys, and pale moons hung in the sky like distant lanterns. It was beautiful, but harsh, a world that demanded strength, courage, and trust. And Liam and Myra had learned that the greatest warmth did not come from fire or sun, but from the bond they shared. They began to move carefully through the tunnels, following the paths Myra knew so well. She led him through arches of ice, past sparkling pools, and under ceilings that glittered like a starry sky. Every step was steady, every gesture filled with silent communication. Words were not always needed. Finally, they reached the mouth of the cave. Light spilled in, washing the walls in white brilliance. Liam blinked against the glow. For a moment, the world seemed larger than he had imagined, vast, endless, and full of possibilities. He turned to Myra. This is amazing," he said softly, though she might not understand the words fully. She smiled. She touched his hand, then pointed to the horizon, where icy peaks glimmered under the moons. She was showing him her world, the one she had protected and lived in all her life. Together, they stepped out into the open air. The cold hit Liam at first, but the warmth in his chest kept him steady. He glanced at Myra. She looked perfectly at home, standing tall amid the snow and ice. He realized then that he had not only chosen her, he had chosen a life full of adventure, discovery, and trust. For the first time, he felt truly alive on this distant world. Myra guided him to a flat plateau overlooking a frozen valley. The ice below caught the light from the moons, creating patterns that shimmered like silver rivers. Liam could feel the vastness of the land, and yet, beside Myra, it no longer felt lonely. He had a companion, a friend, and something more. He bent down to pick up a small shard of glowing crystal from the ground. It pulsed faintly in his hand, warm and alive. He held it out to Myra. She looked at it curiously, then touched it with her fingers. When their hands met on the crystal, a spark seemed to pass between them, not a lightning spark, but one of trust, warmth, and unspoken understanding. Liam laughed softly. Myra mimicked the sound, a gentle echo of joy that carried through the valley. It was a moment of pure happiness, simple and unforced. As the moons moved across the sky, the stars began to appear, sparkling in the clear night. Liam and Myra sat together on the edge of the plateau, legs dangling above the frozen cliffs. The world was silent except for the faint hum of the ice below and the occasional gust of wind. Liam realized that life was full of challenges, but it was also full of moments like this, quiet, peaceful, and filled with connection. He had learned that love and trust were stronger than fear, stronger than distance, stronger than the cold itself. Myra leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. Liam rested his head beside hers. They did not need to speak. Their hearts understood each other perfectly. Far below, the valley stretched into whiteness. Ahead, the future waited unknown, vast, and inviting. But Liam no longer feared it. With Myra beside him, he knew they could face anything together. At last, Liam whispered softly, "We're together." Myra touched his hand and nodded. She did not need words to answer, her eyes said everything. The ice cave, the storms, the challenges, they had passed through all of it. And now, stepping into the light of the frozen world, Liam and Myra carried something stronger than snow, stronger than ice, stronger than fear. They carried each other. And in that vast, cold world, they had found warmth, the warmth of trust, courage, and love. Together, they watched the moons rise higher in the sky. The wind brushed against them, cold on their skin but never in their hearts. For Liam and Myra, the ice no longer felt lonely. It no longer felt cold. It was a world waiting to be explored, side by side, hand in hand, hearts joined as one. And so, in the quiet glow of the ice and under the light of the moons, their journey truly began.